Hey everyone, this is Dan. Let's talk about Taiwan Semiconductor. I'm still very bullish on this stock. Let's look at the chart for the last couple of weeks. When I posted my video a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at this downward trending channel. Since then, it has turned around. At one point, it was actually trying to break above that channel. Unfortunately, it hit the resistance at around 130 and came back down, and since then, it's been more or less going sideways. I mentioned in my last video that the dip of TSM started because there was a COVID scare in Taiwan in the area that's very close to where the major factories and offices of TSM are located. And if you look at this daily new COVID cases of Taiwan, according to Worldometer, they hit a mini peak of 8 cases on January 22nd. Yes, you look at this right, only 8 cases, but as you can see, on the entire island of Taiwan, they peaked at only about 28 cases. They have been controlling the pandemic extremely well with very stringent social distancing rules as well as rigorous contact tracing. And that's why they've been able to contain the virus so well. And that's also the reason why they had a mini panic at 8 cases a day. And then a few days later, the cases peaked at 10 cases a day. Since then, it has been going down, and as of yesterday, they only reported 2 new cases. So the situation is definitely under control now. If you look at the daily chart, that's when they hit the mini peak of 8 cases. Remember that TSM is also sold at the Taiwan Stock Exchange, which leads the US exchanges by 13 hours. And that's why when the TSM stock dipped in Taiwan, it carried into the US market the following day. We saw the dip here, and then when the Taiwan cases peaked at January 30th at 10 cases, that's when the stock price coincidentally hit bottom, and then it started to recover. The next day, only 1 case, and then now we're down to just 1 or 2 cases a day. I know this looks unlikely, but you cannot ignore the correlation. And by the way, I've been following the news reports from Taiwan and have been hearing the concerns of the people in Taiwan. On January 27th, I noted in the update section below the video that the market was due for consolidation today. S&P was down 2.57%. TSM and most other stocks went down with the market. There was no particular bad news to justify the drop. It was indeed a technical adjustment because RSI has been very high in the last few days. And if there's no bad news in the next 2 to 3 days, the market should recover and start reaching for higher levels. And sure enough, 3 days after that, TSM hit bottom and started to rebound. You might say trying to draw the correlation between TSM stock price and COVID cases on the island of Taiwan is crazy, which I understand why you think like that. The more conventional way of looking at it is probably to try to draw the correlation between the price of a stock and the broad market, such as NASDAQ. Here's a chart where I'm comparing the TSM price with QQQ, which tracks very closely with NASDAQ. The yellow line here on this chart is QQQ. It uses the left vertical axis. QQQ closed today at 331. And then the red and green line here is TSM. It closed today at 128. As you can see, TSM peaked here on January 21st, and then January 22nd, the start of the mini COVID scare in Taiwan, it dipped significantly. We also saw a dip with QQQ, although it's not nearly as big. Then both of them went down and bottomed out on January 29th and started to recover on February 1st. So you might say, well, TSM was just flowing with the broad market. Yeah, that might be right. However, you can see that in the last 2-3 days, a gap has been forming between NASDAQ and TSM. TSM has not picked up nearly as much as NASDAQ. And the reason behind that, aside from my COVID interpretation, there is also a major event that's happening in Asia, which is the Chinese New Year. The first day of the Chinese New Year is February 12, 2021. In Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, there is a tradition that you should pay off small personal and business loans before the new year. And that's why this is the period of time when people will sell off their stocks to raise cash to pay off their loans. And that's why the stock market typically is not going to go up during this period. If you look at the chart for Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong, you will see the same pattern. I would expect TSM to pop up right around February 12th or 1 or 2 days earlier. If QQQ is still up there, the nice momentum of the broad market will lift up TSM as well after the Chinese New Year. It'll be a great opportunity to buy TSM sometime approaching the end of next week or the following Monday or Tuesday. Let's zoom in a little bit closer to the 15-minute chart, see how the price has been trending. From this chart, we can see this triangle pattern, and the range is getting very narrow now. At this point, it doesn't really pay to do swing trading. I would just wait until the price break either upward or downward to make my next move. In the meanwhile, I still have quite a few number of shares of TSM in my portfolio. I'm keeping them for the long term. As I mentioned, I'm very bullish on TSM, and I'll explain more in the next few minutes. At this point, I'd like to mention that if you like what you've seen so far, I would very much appreciate if you can click the like, subscribe, and notification button. That's for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. And also, please remember to check the update section below this video every once in a while in case I've entered update notes since I published this video. Let's move on. Let's return to the hourly chart to look at the support and resistance levels. Again, this is the triangular pattern we were talking about. I see resistance at 129, 130, 132, and 134, and I see support at 126 and 124. Let's review some of the fundamentals of TSM. Because there's a worldwide shortage of semiconductor chips, the German government has written to the Taiwanese government to urge them to motivate TSM to produce more chips for German automakers. The US government also intervened and tried to convince the Taiwanese government to get TSM to produce more chips for the US automakers. Then Bazinga reported that TSM and other Taiwan chip makers are poised to raise prices because of this world shortage of chips. There are many competitive advantages of TSM. They include that TSM has commanding lead in the 7nm and 5nm chip fabrication business. Their nearest competitors are Samsung and Intel. Both of them are very far behind. TSM commands 55.6% of the market share, and they have very high barrier for entry for the competitors. I will talk a little bit more about that. The 12-month net income from continuous operation went up an amazing 41.5%. The PEG ratio is only 1.26, which is a very healthy ratio. And they recently secured more than 1,000 acres of land in Arizona, getting ready to build a $12 billion factory in the United States. Let's look at the market shares of TSM and their competitors. The TSM market share is represented by the blue bar. As you can see, ever since 2017, they have been occupying a very large slice of the market. If you look at the latest slice in details, TSM has 55.6% of the market share. The nearest competitor, Samsung, is only 1/3 the size of TSM. The cost of building a new semiconductor foundry is about $1 to $4 billion. That's why it's not easy for any manufacturer to try to just build a few foundries and catch up with TSM. Besides, there's a lot of intellectual property and know-how in the chip fabrication business so that they can maintain very high quality rate for making chips. These are the really important strategic advantages of TSM. That's why I believe TSM will continue to do very well in the next 2-3 years at least. This is a quick recap of the valuation I did for TSM back on January 23rd. From those calculations, I arrived at my price target of $160 a share for the next few months. And I just double-checked the analyst opinions. The first time I did that was January 21st. Since then, there's been one revision, and that was from CNN Business. They revised the median target from 144.5 to 148.25, which is another bullish sign for TSM. Again, I'd like to remind you that if you like this video, please click the like, subscribe, and notification button. Thank you very much. I'd like to mention that I'm not a financial advisor. You should make up your own decision with regard to buying or selling financial instruments, and you should probably consult with your financial advisors before you do so. I share my trading strategies for educational purpose only. In the meanwhile, I'd like to wish you the best of luck with your financial investments. I will chat with you again in the next few days.